church minister shot dead while using an ATM, the government accused of colluding with the Chinese over Bahar, and a judge suggesting the door is open for same-sex marriages in the country. We've got these stories and others. I'm your host, Nico Scavella, and this is the Tribune's Top 5. Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller this week said the government's decision to surrender the day-to-day management of Bahamas Power and Light to Power Secure could hurt the Progressive Liberal Party in the next general election.
Mr. Miller spoke to the Tribune as thousands of Bahamians were left without electricity on Wednesday due to outage rotations by BPL to help offset the fact that the corporation could not meet customer demand. In one of several statements released on Wednesday, BPL said customers would experience power outages in 2-hour intervals until further notice. Customers were advised to check BPL's Facebook page for continued updates on the affected areas. At 10:30 p.m. on Wednesday, a statement said one engine had been returned to service to provide enough capacity to meet customer demand on the island while repairs were completed on 2 others. But a severe thunderstorm which produced lightning strikes then damaged BPL's transmission and distribution networks, causing further outages in several communities across the island. The company said crews were working through the night to carry out repairs and restore power. This failure to keep the lights on came months after American company Power Secure was contracted to take over management at the government-owned utility provider. The new management deal was touted by the government as being the answer to subpar electricity service and high electricity bills. On Wednesday, Mr. Miller said while serving as chairman of the corporation, he and his team had a plan in place for summer blackouts, plans to have a fully operational 128-megawatt plant up and running by June of this year thanks to financing and a guaranteed loan from the National Insurance Board, amongst other things. However, he said those plans were halted once the government decided that it would be better served by passing the management of the corporation to the American firm. On Thursday, however, Prime Minister Perry Christie said he does not second-guess his government's decision to partner with Power Secure. Mr. Christie said Mr. Miller was wrong for his assertions for any number of reasons, adding that the decision to go with Power Secure would prove to be the correct one in both the medium and long term. A church minister was shot and killed early Sunday morning while using a Scotiabank automated teller machine at Wolf Road and Jerome Avenue. Ivan Clare, a 61-year-old minister at New Bethlehem Baptist Church on Independence Drive, was found dead shortly after 8 a.m. when police responded to a tip they received. Assistant Commissioner of Police Stephen Dean said investigators were unsure of when the shooting took place or how long the victim had been lying on the ground. However, an employee at a nearby gas station told the Tribune that the victim had come into the station for gas early Sunday morning, and the employee expressed shock to learn that he had been, quote, killed in cold blood, end quote. Police subsequently issued 2 images taken from video surveillance footage which showed the alleged shooter in a silver-colored car believed to be the gunman's getaway car. Hours after the shooting, police reported that a suspect was in custody, adding that a handgun was allegedly found in his possession. Meanwhile, Mr. Clare's family described the father of 3 as Superman. In an emotional Facebook post, Rico Clare, one of Mr. Clare's sons, said the family is still in shock and disbelief that a, quote, wonderful father, husband, grandfather, uncle, godfather, and friend, end quote, was taken from them so early.
National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage this week had very little to say when questioned on the government's approach to arresting violent crime in the country.
Just one day after 3 men were slain in the capital in 2 separate shooting incidents, one while using an ATM and 2 in the Fox Hill area, Dr. Nottage's response to questions about the government's strategy to tackle growing crime trends was, quote, we are constantly monitoring crime in the country. We are constantly instituting strategies and we will continue to do so, end quote. Under the Progressive Liberal Party, there have been 514 murders in the Bahamas since the 2012 general election, according to the Tribune's records, surpassing the 490 plus under the last F&M administration, which was highlighted as part of the PLP's campaign. Apart from a murder count of 56 for the year, according to the Tribune's records, police have also reported a recent spate of armed robberies, with 10 recorded during the past weekend alone. The government's silence regarding the recent scourge of crime this week sparked criticism from F&M leader Dr. Hubert Minnis, who questioned whether fixing the crime epidemic was a priority for the Christie administration. He said by doing nothing, the government is ignoring this festering issue. He said, and I quote, 4 years ago, the PLP promised to eradicate crime, but sadly Sunday past serves as one more example that crime is only getting worse under this government. The crime rate impacts every corner of our society, from families fearful in their homes to tourists choosing other places to spend their vacation dollars. Where is the urgency on fixing the crime epidemic? This government needs to understand that you cannot fix a problem and you choose to ignore it. Action is required today, and the people want to know what this government is prepared to do, end quote. Ivan Clare, a minister at New Bethlehem Baptist Church, was shot and killed early Sunday morning while using a Scotiabank ATM at Wolf Road and Jerome Avenue. Mr. Clear's lifeless body was discovered shortly after 8 a.m. and police responded to a tip they received. About 12 hours after this incident, 2 men, including a father, were shot dead in Fox Hill. Police were called to the scene of the double homicide on Adderley Street shortly after 9 p.m., where the 2 men were standing outside when they were shot. On Sunday night, police said they had a person of interest in custody but did not have a motive for the killings. Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andre Rollins this week accused the Christie administration of colluding with China Construction America Bahamas and deceiving Bahamians over the stalled $3.5 billion Bahama resort to protect the financial interests of the Chinese. This, Dr. Rollins said, ultimately cut the legs from underneath project developer Sarkis Merlion. However, Prime Minister Perry Christie strongly denied the claims, saying it was absolutely wrong for Dr. Rollins to mislead the country. He said the record would reflect that there was no intention to delay the resort on the part of the government. Mr. Christie said at all times the government worked in the best interest of Bahamians and sought advice from government-hired lawyers in the United States, the United Kingdom, as well as the Attorney General's office to ensure his administration was making the right decisions. Branding the Prime Minister as weak nonetheless, Dr. Rollins further urged Mr. Christie to suspend all Bahama negotiations with the Chinese. He said Mr. Christie was desperate to gain a victory in the form of the resumption of construction at Bahama in return for granting concessions that are not in this country's best interest. Dr. Rollins also said he was fearful that Mr. Christie would give the Chinese way more than the Bahamas could afford, pointing to speculation that Chinese investors had requested hundreds of economic citizenships. Dr. Rollins was adamant that this was a means of assisting Chinese citizens with an avenue of escaping criminal prosecution. Dr. Rollins also said the government was cozy with CCA, allowing the Chinese construction firm and its executive vice president Tiger Wu to persuade officials into allowing the development to proceed into liquidation on the premise that as soon as this was done, delayed construction would imminently begin. Dr. Rollins' highly critical remarks led Mr. Christie to apologize for putting the former PLP MP in a position to hold a seat in Parliament. To this, Dr. Rollins said it was evident that Mr. Christie wanted a lackey and that he would not be silenced or prevented from speaking on behalf of Bahamians.
Court of Appeal President Dame Anita Allen this week highlighted difficulties in the country's marriage laws that do not present any provision that parties to a marriage must be male and female.
Dame Anita said the judiciary is likely to face challenges in determining whether same-sex marriages are legal in the Bahamas. She said that arguably the laws of the Bahamas do not discriminate on the basis of sex and facilitate not only marriages of every description but also consummation of the same. Given the various challenges relating to the existing law, Dame Anita insisted that both the Marriage Act and the Matrimonial Causes Act require reconstructing to meet the needs of a changing society. She also suggested that the Bahamas amend its constitution similar to the way Jamaica did in 2008, in declaring that no marriage other than between a man and a woman is recognized and of legal effect. With this, she said, may similarly be susceptible to a constitutional challenge. She said the country must choose what it wants to do when deciding the definition of marriage. And after the highly controversial failed June 7th gender equality referendum, which saw a wave of pushback to Question 4 that sought to prevent discrimination based on sex or being male or female, Dame Anita said this question neither opened nor closed the door to same-sex marriages. She also said marriage in the Bahamas is of a juristic nature and may not simply turn on whether there is a definition of marriage in the Marriage Act or whether the English common law definition of marriage is received as part of this country's laws. She said it may ultimately turn on whether marriage is a constitutional right guaranteed to all. In light of her comments, some like Marco City MP Greg Moss and prominent pastor Lyle Bethel have called for Dame Anita to recuse herself from potential cases involving same-sex marriage, arguing that her views confirm a personal bias. However, prominent attorney Wayne Monroe QC has dismissed those assertions, stressing that it is not unusual for sitting judges to give lectures.
Want to get in on the discussion? Well, here's how you can. Just log on to our website, www.tribune242.com, like us on Facebook, Tribune News Network, subscribe to our YouTube page, Tribune242, or send us a tweet at Tribune242.